The story begins in the Gainsborough Empire, home to 4 prestigious noble houses of great influence. A weathered map reveals the territories of the imperial Gainsboroughs and the ducal houses of Cavendish and Hernando. The noble lineage is completed by the ducal house of Stuart, represented by a grand winged crest. A majestic, sprawling mansion stands bathed in sunlight, serving as a symbol of high-born wealth and power. A mysterious girl holding a rabbit doll is shrouded in shadows and thorns, hiding a dark secret. She wields a terrifying power, capable of transferring horrific calamities and misfortune onto a specific chosen person. Imprisoned and isolated, the girl gazes through cold iron bars, her face lost to the deepening darkness. Crash! Lightning strikes on a stormy night as news breaks of the girl jumping to her death. Guards stand watch over the girl's lifeless body, her blue dress soaked by the unrelenting cold rain. Boom! Thunder echoes through the city streets as the scene shifts away from the tragic tower. In a dark alleyway, a small blonde girl lies curled in pain, whimpering softly as the rain falls. Her green eyes well with tears, her skin bruised and battered while she struggles to endure the storm. The narrative shifts back 1 year to a humble orphanage where the sun shines on timber-framed buildings. A refined countess, accompanied by her fan, observes a young blonde girl presented by a stern caretaker. The young girl looks up with a mixture of sadness and uncertainty, her clothes worn and patched. Countess Ilk's Kaffee realizes she has finally found the special, gifted child she has been searching for. Months earlier in the orphanage, a young boy cries out in pain while his friends watch helplessly. A miraculous revelation announces that Al possesses the divine ability to erase the calamities suffered by others. Golden light emanates from Al's hands as she heals the sick boy, promising him that he is safe. The exertion is too much, and Al collapses as her worried friends rush to her side. Despite her exhaustion, Al offers a weak, selfless smile, content that she could help her friend. The headmistress greedily pitches Al to the Countess, claiming the girl is the perfect fit for her needs. Al gazes up in confusion, wondering what the headmistress and the noblewoman are planning for her future. Peering over her fan with sharp eyes, the Countess coldly commands the trembling girl to lift her face. Thump, thump. Al's heart races as she wonders if this intimidating woman is truly meant to be her mother. The Countess turns away with a smirk, ordering that the child be washed thoroughly before their departure. Splash! A sudden burst of water hits Al, catching the young girl completely off guard. Soaked and shivering, Al stands in a cold room, clutching her wet rags as she waits. A maid roughly scrubs Al's hair, telling her she should feel lucky to be taken in by nobility. Ow! The maid's harsh treatment brings tears to Al's eyes as her scalp is scrubbed with unnecessary force. Another bucket of water is dumped over Al's head, leaving her drenched and gasping for breath. Splat! Water drips from Al's bruised legs into a growing puddle on the dark wooden floor. Transformed by a clean dress and a blue bow, Al looks at herself with wide-eyed surprise. Beneath a dark family portrait, Al considers herself lucky, unaware of the thorns surrounding her new life. From behind, Al's long blonde hair is neatly tied with a large, regal blue ribbon. The Countess leads Al into a lavish bedroom where a sick girl lies resting under heavy covers. Al is introduced to her new younger sister, Aurora Kaffee, who appears frail and bedridden. A dark, oppressive aura surrounds Aurora as she sleeps, hinting at the severity of her mysterious illness. The Countess explains that Aurora has been fighting a long, losing battle against her failing health. Feigning deep distress, the Countess clutches her handkerchief while Al watches her new mother's apparent grief. Al is devastated by the news, heartbroken that her new family is already facing such tragedy. She looks down in somber reflection, realizing that without help, her sister's condition likely means death. Determination flickers in Al's green eyes as she prepares to use her secret gift for her sister. Al resolves to save Aurora at any cost, regardless of the burden it might place on her. Reaching out, Al takes Aurora's hand as her healing light begins to swirl around them both. True to her power, Al begins the painful process of transferring Aurora's suffering into her own body. Al collapses in agony while Aurora finally rests peacefully. The calamity successfully moved to its new host. Sometime Al falls to the ground in the garden, seemingly pushed by an unseen force. A healthy and vibrant Aurora yells at Al, telling her sister to stop following her around. Screaming in rage, Aurora lashes out violently, demanding to know how many times she must reject Al's presence. Al stands in silence, her forehead stained with blood as the weight of her burden begins to show. Aurora storms away in a fit of rage, leaving the injured Al alone with her blooming wounds. Walking through the grand, sunlit hallway, Al's path crosses with Patak Kafi, the son of the Count. As they meet, Al bows her head respectfully, while the dark bruise on her forehead remains visible. Patak Kafi, the heir to the house, observes the young girl with a cold and calculating gaze. To hide the truth, Al quickly claims she merely tripped and fell, masking the source of her injury. Patak offers a condescending pat on her head, praising the blonde girl for being such a good child. A gentle pawn sounds as he touches her, privately noting that she might be more durable than anticipated. His expression turns dark as he assesses Al's value, considering how much suffering her body can truly endure. Confusion flickers in Al's green eyes as she senses something unsettling about her elder brother's sudden attention. Waving goodbye, Patak reminds her of her primary duty to ensure Aurora's safety and well-being at all times. Burdened by numerous birthday gifts, Al approaches the Countess as preparations for Aurora's celebration continue in earnest. The Countess fastidiously adjusts Aurora's elaborate orange gown while Al watches quietly from the periphery of the room. Concern fills the air as the Countess warns Aurora about the dangers of wearing high heels during the party. Aurora throws a childish tantrum, demanding to wear the shoes despite the risks, while Al carries the gifts past. Sensing the tension, a soft tisk escapes as Al notices the growing volatility of the healthy, energetic sister. The Countess offers a rare, warm smile while comforting Aurora, showing a stark contrast to her coldness toward Al. Obeying her instructions, Al presents the pink heels on a cushion, facilitating Aurora's dangerous desire to look perfect. Bathed in a flowery aura, Aurora glows with health and beauty, a direct result of Al's sacrificial healing. Al watches her sister from the shadows, momentarily struck by Aurora's stunning appearance in her fine silk dress. A soft ah escapes Al's lips as she suddenly senses a familiar, oppressive presence surrounding her vibrant sister. A terrifying dark aura begins to coil around Aurora, signaling that another calamity is looming on the horizon. Looking like an angel, Aurora makes her grand entrance at the birthday party, while Al watches with mounting dread. The noble guests are mesmerized by the young girl's radiance. Aurora revels in the attention, surrounded by roses as she enjoys the pinnacle of her status and beauty. Whispers of prestigious marriage proposals fill the hall as Aurora gracefully begins her descent down the grand staircase. The sharp click of high heels echoes on the steps just before disaster strikes during the festive celebration. Gravity takes hold as Aurora's foot slips, sending the birthday girl tumbling down the long flight of stairs. Blood stains the red carpet as Aurora lies motionless at the bottom, shocking the crowd of horrified onlookers. Chaos erupts as the Countess desperately cradles her unconscious daughter, begging her to stay with the grieving family. Patak urgently whispers to the Countess, commanding her to bring the injured Aurora to Al for immediate treatment. The Countess bursts into Al's room, frantically demanding that she save her sister from her grave bleeding injuries. As Al reaches out, the transfer begins, drawing the physical trauma away from Aurora and into herself. Al collapses in a dark void of agony, the weight of the fall crashing down upon her small frame. The Countess harshly rebukes a concerned maid, insisting that Al is merely a tool for Aurora's exclusive use. Fearful and cowed, the maid agrees to ignore Al's plight, focused solely on serving the needs of Aurora. Shrouded in thorns, Al realizes her true purpose in this house is to serve as a sacrificial vessel. The word tool echoes in her mind, shattering the fragile hope she once held for a loving family. Miraculously healed, a vibrant Aurora smiles brightly before her birthday cake, her life restored by Al's silent sacrifice. The guests are stunned by her recovery, wondering if the young girl possesses some hidden divine special ability. Nobility marvel at the disappearance of the head wound, unable to explain the impossible speed of her recovery. Trapped in a thorny darkness, Al understands that while the injuries vanish, the searing pain remains hers alone. Tears well in Al's eyes as she questions why she must endure such horrific suffering for another's happiness. She recalls the joyful image of Aurora dancing at the ball, a happiness built upon Al's own misery. Despite her sister's health, Al is consumed by an overwhelming sadness that no magical healing can ever truly erase. The scene shifts to a quiet morning as a maid gazes out the window, checking on the household. Al stands pale and fragile in her room, being questioned about her health after the previous night's ordeal. Forcing a weak smile, Al lies to the maid, claiming she feels much better despite the lingering exhaustion. The maid expresses deep concern, suggesting that Al should rest longer after taking on such a massive calamity. With a heartbreakingly sweet expression, Al insists the pain vanished after one night, shielding her suffering from everyone. The black-haired maid reveals she witnessed Al's ordeal, offering the young girl a rare moment of genuine empathy. Trapped in a spiritual cage of thorns, Al endures invisible agonies that would break the spirit of any adult. A soft grit sounds as Al bites her lip, internalizing her pain while keeping her emotions strictly guarded. Desperate to protect the child, the maid begs Al to stop suppressing her feelings for the sake of others. Looking down with a somber expression, Al finally admits that the previous day's suffering was truly difficult to bear. Forcing a bright, tearful smile, Al accepts her status as an outsider, determined to remain kind despite the family's cruelty. Their private moment is interrupted as another maid approaches, causing the two to quickly mask their emotional conversation. Ollie, the brown-haired maid, rudely commands Al to follow her, dismissing the girl's obvious exhaustion with a sharp order. As Ollie drags Al away for chores, the black-haired maid protests the unfair treatment, though her concerns are ignored. Al stands frozen in shock as she overhears Ollie's cold assertion that there is no need to treat her carefully. The maids whisper cruelly, labeling Al a monster for her supernatural recovery, unaware that she hears every hurtful word. A heavy sadness settles over Al as she realizes her only worth in the mansion is as a sacrificial tool. A tired sigh escapes as Al begins the menial task of weeding, her small frame weighed down by loneliness. Gazing at the vast open sky, Al questions if she was foolish to ever hope for a real family's love. A sudden, soft whine draws Al's attention as a small, fluffy gray puppy peeks tentatively from behind a tree. The tiny creature tilts its head in curiosity, observing the lonely girl with wide, innocent eyes from the safety of the woods. Delight replaces Al's sorrow as she greets the puppy, though the small animal responds with a defensive, high-pitched growl. The puppy stands its ground, growling at Al's feet as if protecting a secret stash hidden within the bushes. Reaching out a gentle hand, Al tries to soothe the frightened creature, promising that she won't cause it any harm. A warm, flowery aura surrounds Al as she offers the puppy a kind smile, slowly winning over its fearful heart. The puppy finally relents, allowing Al to pet its soft fur as she giggles at its sudden, adorable affection. A wet slurp sounds as the puppy joyfully licks Al's face, marking the beginning of a precious, secret friendship. Suddenly, the puppy bolts away into the underbrush, leaving a confused Al to call out after her fleeing companion. Pushing through the leaves, Al discovers the puppy proudly guarding a stolen chicken, revealing the mansion's mysterious kitchen thief. Al laughs for the first time in days, realizing the tiny monster the maids feared was just a hungry puppy. Bubbling with excitement, the puppy yaps happily as Al lifts it into the air, celebrating their newfound bond together. The pair shares a moment of pure joy, momentarily forgetting the harsh reality of the mansion surrounding them. Al officially names her new friend Belle, watching with a smile as he eagerly devours his hard-earned prize. A joyful awu echoes through the clearing as Al and Belle run through the grass, finally feeling truly free. Lying under the warm sun, Al whispers that she is having fun, finding solace in Belle's uncomplicated, loyal love. Horror strikes as Al finds Belle lying in a pool of blood, his small body broken by a savage attack. Tears stream down Al's face as she activates her power, determined to save her only friend, regardless of the cost. Al coughs up blood as the healing takes its toll, transferring Belle's mortal wounds into her own fragile body. The miracle is complete as a healthy Belle awakens, leaving Al exhausted but relieved to see him standing again. Stroking Belle's fur, Al whispers her gratitude, content to bear the physical pain as long as he is safe. A sharp, cold voice shatters the peace, demanding Al explain why she is using her restricted power in secret. The Countess and Aurora confront Al, accusing her of being a common thief who stole their property. Trembling on the ground, Al clutches Belle tightly as the two noblewomen loom over her with expressions of pure malice. Sensing his friend's fear, Belle barks fiercely at the Countess, trying his best to protect Al from their cruelty. Al tries to restrain the protective puppy, terrified of what the vengeful Countess might do to him for his defiance. A violent slap echoes through the woods as the Countess strikes Al, punishing her for her perceived insolence. The Countess glares with terrifying intensity, reminding Al that her life and power belong solely to the Caffey family. Through her tears, Al bravely defends her actions, insisting that she couldn't leave her friend to die in pain. Enraged by Al's defiance, the Countess prepares to strike again, refusing to tolerate anything less than total obedience. Belle lunges forward with a fierce growl, placing himself between Al and the woman who would harm her. A sickening thud sounds, followed by a pained whimper as the Countess heartlessly kicks the small puppy away. Grabbing Belle by the tail, the Countess coldly suggests turning him into a muffler, while Aurora laughs in agreement. Al stares in paralyzed horror, her spirit shattering as she witnesses the absolute cruelty of her supposed new family. Collapsing to her knees, Al begs for mercy, willing to endure any punishment if they will only spare Belle. Haunted by the shadows of the Caffey family, Al realizes that breaking their rules has doomed the only joy she found. Al shares a brief moment of pure happiness, cherishing the unconditional love of her small friend. Shards of memories pierce Al's heart as she mourns the tragic loss of her only precious companion. The scene shifts to a bustling city street where a high-end hat shop attracts noble clientele. Aurora gleefully tries on a lavish bonnet while Al stands silently in the background of the boutique. The Countess sips tea and offers high praise for Aurora's appearance, completely ignoring Al's quiet presence. Surrounded by the latest fashion collection, the Countess ensures Aurora receives every bit of luxury and attention. Bubbling with childish gratitude, Aurora thanks her mother while the Countess enjoys a moment of high society leisure. Aurora's joy is palpable, but Al suddenly senses a familiar, chilling dread beginning to manifest nearby. A dark aura begins to loom as the Countess sharply orders Al to carry their heavy shopping bags. Al dutifully accepts the packages from a shop assistant, burdened by both the boxes and her growing fear. Aurora excitedly plans a picnic while Al follows behind, her eyes fixed on the darkening presence surrounding her sister. Basking in her mother's affection, Aurora remains blissfully unaware of the catastrophic energy gathering in her wake. A sudden, sharp gust of wind sends Aurora's new hat flying, prompting the girl to dash into the street. Panic flares as the Countess screams for Aurora to stop, but the girl's focus remains on her runaway prize. Al warns that the danger is intensifying, only for an irritated Aurora to command her to be quiet. Desperate to prevent the coming disaster, Al reaches out as her sister plunges headlong into a deadly situation. A frantic "ah" sounds as Aurora blindly chases her hat toward an oncoming horse-drawn carriage. Time freezes as a rearing horse towers over the terrified girl, signaling the arrival of a brutal calamity. Horrified onlookers gather as Aurora lies broken on the pavement, the festive shopping trip ending in sudden bloodshed. Despair overcomes the Countess as she cradles her blood-stained daughter, her noble composure shattered by the gruesome scene. Cruel whispers fill the air as bystanders marvel at the relentless misfortune haunting the young Lady Aurora. Turning her desperation into a command, the Countess frantically orders Al to use her healing power immediately. Al stands frozen, paralyzed by the sheer, overwhelming terror of an aura more malicious than she has ever seen. A sharp grit sounds as the Countess glares, demanding Al stop acting like an idiot and start healing. A monstrous shadow looms over the scene as Al realizes this disaster far exceeds any she has previously faced. Al's green eyes widen in shock, her small frame trembling under the weight of the impending sacrifice. The Countess grips Al tightly, hysterically commanding the child to perform her sole duty and save her sister. A soft escapes Al as she steels her nerves, trying to stay calm despite the agonizing fear. Al kneels by her sister's side, accepting that she is the only one who can prevent Aurora's death. Searing pain surges through Al's hands as she begins the transfer, her skin staining with her sister's blood. Breathless and cruel, the Countess orders Al to keep going, indifferent to the girl's visible physical suffering. Tears stream down Al's face as the invisible agony of the impact begins to tear through her body. The transfer intensifies, drawing the trauma out of Aurora and into Al's fragile, small form. The Countess rages that this sacrifice is for Aurora, demanding Al endure the pain without any hesitation. A sharp sting sounds as Al's face bruises, the physical reality of her sister's injuries manifesting on her. Thorns of spiritual agony tighten around them both as the healing process reaches its most critical and painful stage. Al pleads for Aurora to wake up, her own strength fading as she absorbs the life-threatening damage. Showing no mercy, the Countess accuses the suffering child of intentionally holding back her power. The woman's voice rises in a frantic rage, demanding to know why her favorite daughter remains unconscious. Aurora remains deathly still, the transition of her mortal wounds nearly complete as the dark energy dissipates. Al watches her mother's desperation, wondering if this sacrifice might finally earn her a crumb of genuine love. A sharp sob sounds as the Countess drops to her knees, begging Al to save her sister. Fear consumes the mother as she weeps over Aurora, her world collapsing at the thought of losing her. Al is haunted by her mother's unprecedented vulnerability, hoping this moment signals a change in their relationship. A brilliant golden glow marks the final stage of the transfer, sealing Al's fate as the sacrificial vessel. Al focuses every ounce of her remaining energy on the healing, determined to fulfill her family's wishes. Looking up at her mother, Al's heart breaks as she realizes the woman's concern is solely for Aurora. Al weakly confirms Aurora's safety, though her own body shudders with the weight of the absorbed trauma. Relief washes over the Countess as Aurora finally awakens, her recovery hailed us a miraculous blessing. Al collapses into a dark abyss of thorns and flowers, forgotten and broken once her utility is exhausted. Relieved she saved Aurora, Al collapses as her consciousness fades from the immense physical strain. In her final moments of awareness, Al desperately hopes this sacrifice will finally make her a family member. Under a cold moonlight, the Countess heartlessly orders her men to discard Al's seemingly lifeless body. The Countess justifies her cruelty, claiming Al owes her life for the food and shelter they provided. Abandoned and broken, Al's spirit wanders through a mental prison of thorns, questioning her mother's ultimate betrayal. A mysterious, high-ranking noble appears, gently lifting Al into his arms as a brilliant aura surrounds them. The kind-eyed man reassures the drifting girl that she is safe now and he is taking her home. Carrying her away from the darkness, the man's promise of home sparks a flicker of hope in Al. Sunlight bathes a magnificent bedroom as Al sleeps peacefully in a bed far grander than any before. A soft rustle sounds as Al slowly awakens, sitting up in the luxurious silken sheets with wide eyes. Confused and disoriented, Al looks around the ornate room, her green eyes searching for any sign of danger. A frantic maid bursts through the doors, her face lighting up with immense relief upon seeing Al awake. Sobbing with joy, the maid rushes off to inform the household of the young lady's miraculous recovery. Al watches the servant leave, her small hand reaching out as she tries to grasp her new reality. Looking out toward the bright windows, Al realizes she is no longer a prisoner of the Cafe mansion. Memories of her savior's golden aura resurface, making her realize she hasn't returned to her cruel family. Al wonders who the mysterious, powerful man was and why he would rescue a discarded child like her. Lost in thought, Al sits quietly in the expansive bed, the silence of the room feeling strangely peaceful. The doors fly open as a silver-haired noble rushes in, calling out Al's name with visible, heart-wrenching concern. The silver-haired man's prestigious uniform glimmers, its intricate blue and white patterns signifying his extremely high status. Al's breath hitches as she recognizes the kind, protective aura from the night she was left for dead. Approaching with an energetic gait, the silver-haired noble radiates a warmth that fills the entire sunlit room. A joyful oof sounds as the man scoops Al into a crushing, affectionate hug, celebrating her life. Giggling with unrestrained happiness, the man nuzzles Al's cheek, treating her with a tenderness she has never known. Realizing Al is overwhelmed, the man pulls back slightly, his eyes searching hers for any sign of lingering pain. The butler politely intervenes, noting that the young master's sudden, vigorous affection has quite startled the poor girl. Rubbing his head bashfully, the silver-haired man apologizes, explaining that his relief at her awakening simply overcame him. His gaze softens into a look of pure, unconditional kindness as he remains at the bedside of his guest. A sharp doki sounds in Al's heart as she stares at his gentle face, feeling safe for the first time. In a humorous moment, the man waves away her worries, insisting he doesn't blame her for anything at all. He reaches out to take her hands, his warm touch grounding her as he promises her a new life. Al's green eyes widen in shock as she contemplates the terrifying yet beautiful possibility of finally having a family. A professional ahem from the butler reminds the pair of their social standing as he prepares to speak. The butler formally announces that Al is now a resident within the legendary house of Duke Stewart. The silver-haired savior is revealed to be Prince Merard Stewart, a member of the Empire's highest nobility. Al clutches her blankets, her mind reeling at the realization that she is under the protection of a prince. A vision of a beautiful girl in a golden gown appears, symbolizing the royal future awaiting the young Al. Touching her chest, Al struggles to reconcile her past as an orphan with her current extraordinary circumstances. An overview of the Gainsborough Empire highlights the three powerful ducal houses that stand just beneath the throne. The butler explains that the House of Stuart is one of these three pillars holding the entire empire together. A portrait of the Stuart lineage shows they are nobles of the highest rank, far above the cruel countess. Tears well up in Al's eyes as the sheer unreality of her new status as a noble grandchild sinks in. Al recalls her dark, lonely days at the orphanage, a world that feels light years away from this palace. Bowing her head, Al feels a surge of overwhelming emotion, her small body trembling with relief and lingering grief. A gentle hand rests on her head, Merard Stewart's touch providing the comfort she has sought her entire life. A rhythmic nade-nade sound fills the air as Merard strokes her hair, his eyes shining with fatherly affection. Al looks up at him, her green eyes shimmering as she slowly begins to trust in his sincere, protective love. A soft blush colors Al's cheeks as she finally relaxes under the prince's kind and steady hand. Merard Stewart smiles warmly, his gaze promising that Al will never have to face the cold world alone again. A table laden with decadent sweets and pastries marks the beginning of Al's new, abundant life among the Stewarts. Overwhelmed by her incredible transformation, Al lets out a soft wah as she takes in her new surroundings. Prince Merard Stewart kindly invites Al to enjoy a lavish table filled with a miraculous variety of colorful sweets. Still adjusting to the sudden warmth, Al's green eyes widen in disbelief at the kindness of her new family. Savoring a delicious treat, Al beams with pure joy, finally experiencing the simple, sweet happiness of a cared-for child. A joyful giggle sounds as the maids watch Al eat, marveling at how she resembles a precious tiny kitten. The staff presents a stunning collection of luxury gowns, signaling Al's complete departure from her previous life of rags. A magnificent orange and gold dress is showcased, representing the royal status and dignity now bestowed upon the girl. The maids display an elegant blue palace-style gown, its intricate patterns glimmering with a newfound sense of noble prestige. A fashionable light green dress is revealed, perfectly complementing Al's vibrant eyes and her blooming life at the palace. Al clasps her hands together in excitement, a radiant and genuine smile illuminating her face for the first time. A vision of Aurora in a pink gown surfaces as Al wonders if her cruel sister shared these luxuries. A harsh memory of Aurora screaming at her casts a dark shadow, a sharp "hey" echoing her past abuse. Haunted by the trauma, Al flinches instinctively, her expression twisting with the lingering fear of her former family's cruelty. Sensing her sudden distress, Merard asks if Al dislikes the gifts, his voice filled with sincere concern for her. Al stands trembling in her beautiful new dress, her eyes downcast as she struggles against the weight of memories. The room falls into a heavy silence as the prince and servants witness the deep, unspoken sorrow Al carries. Merard and his butler exchange serious, worried looks, realizing the extent of the emotional scars left by the Countess. A sharp slide sounds as Al bows low, frantically begging for forgiveness and fearing she has somehow angered them. Merard immediately pulls her into a protective embrace, his hand resting gently on her head to provide instant comfort. Wrapping the girl in a firm, protective hug, the silver-haired prince offers Al the safety she has always craved. A soft pawan sounds as Al leans into him, the warmth of his presence beginning to soothe her heart. A rhythmic chirp fills the air outside the palace, marking a peaceful transition as a new morning begins. Looking down at the fragile child, Merard's eyes are filled with a fierce, fatherly determination to protect her future. Tears of relief finally spill over as Al realizes she no longer has to fear being discarded or punished. Wiping away a tear, Al looks up at Merard, the bond between them strengthening through this moment of vulnerability. Looking at a portrait of his father, Merard reflects on the powerful Stuart lineage that now stands behind Al. Al clutches her lace collar, still slightly nervous but finding strength in the unconditional support of the Stewart family. Merard commands the maids to proceed with Al's preparations, demanding they report every detail of her well-being to him. Sharing a final, tender glance, the prince reassures Al that she belongs here and is truly, deeply valued now. As the household moves forward, Al watches her new family leave, the concept of having a brother becoming real. Al's shimmering green eyes focus on the path ahead, the darkness of her past slowly fading into the light. Merard walks with purpose, his regal uniform gleaming as he discusses the next steps with his loyal, bespectacled butler. His expression turns cold and sharp as he inquires about the behavior of the cruel woman in the dungeon. Recalling Al's tears, Merard's heart burns with a protective fury against those who dared to harm his new sister. The prince resolves to interrogate the prisoner personally, his gaze hard with the promise of absolute justice for all. The scene shifts back to the wardrobe, where more colorful, elegant dresses are being prepared for the young lady. A bubbly maid asks Al to choose her next outfit, stunned that all these beautiful things are for her. Al stares at her reflection, overwhelmed by the realization that she is finally allowed to wear something truly glamorous. The maid gestures enthusiastically, eager to begin the transformation of the young lady into a proper palace resident. Twirling with joy, the servant expresses her excitement at the chance to serve such a precious, kind-hearted girl. A playful, mischievous look crosses the maid's face as she prepares to dedicate her full attention to Al's beauty. A sudden startle sounds as the maid approaches with styling tools, causing Al to flinch from her previous trauma. Al's eyes swirl in a humorous daze, her small frame overwhelmed by the maid's intense and energetic pampering. A quick wipe sounds as the maid gently cleanses Al's face, treating her with unparalleled care and tenderness. The mirror reveals a transformed Al, wearing a lovely pink dress and ribbons that highlight her natural, radiant beauty. Sobbing with delight, the maid declares Al's new look to be too adorable for her heart to handle. Modeling her new pink casual wear gown, Al looks charming and happy, finally embracing her new life as a steward. For a social gathering, she wears a deep blue dress, her elegance matching the highest ranks of the Gainsborough Empire. In a practical night-style ensemble, Al appears confident and ready to face the world under her brother's protection. A soft glisten fills the maid's eyes as she weeps with joy, celebrating the young lady's incredible and well-deserved transformation. Looking down at her pink dress, the golden-haired Alvi apologizes, feeling like she doesn't belong in such luxury. Clad in a large pink gown, the golden-haired Alvi stands nervously, her tiny hands hidden within ruffled sleeves. Looking at herself, the golden-haired Alvi sadly notes that such a beautiful dress is entirely wasted on her. A brown-haired maid gently reassures Alvi, insisting every dress in the room was created specifically for her. The maid encourages Alvi to stop worrying as the golden-haired girl offers a soft and hesitant response. Sitting regally, the silver-haired duke in a red uniform questions if the man they brought has been found. A hazy memory shows a mysterious figure carrying a sleeping golden-haired girl through a field of white flowers. The silver-haired brother requests more time, while the duke suggests seeking help from the imperial family. With a sharp gaze, the silver-haired brother decides to send a formal letter to Crown Prince Theodore. Investigating the past, the silver-haired brother reveals they have already captured the abusive and corrupt orphanage director. Dark silhouettes loom over young children in a memory of the orphanage where they were sold for adoption. A sharp thud sounds as the enraged duke slams his desk, demanding to know where the director is. Standing tall, the silver-haired brother asks for permission to interrogate the director currently detained in the dungeon. With a cold expression, the silver-haired duke grants permission, demanding the absolute truth for House Stewart. Turning his attention elsewhere, the silver-haired duke instructs his son to fetch Alvi from her room. A rhythmic clock sounds as the silver-haired youth walks down the grand mansion hallway to find Alvi. Surprised, the silver-haired brother stops as he spots Alvi, who has already prepared for their important meeting. Staring blankly, the silver-haired youth is momentarily speechless as he takes in Alvis's stunning and elegant transformation. Shimmering sparkles surround Alvis' new purple lace dress, highlighting the intricate floral patterns and layered white ruffles. The brown-haired maid beams with pride, calling her styling of the golden-haired Alvi a true masterpiece. A family portrait vision shows the silver-haired Duke and Catherine with their children, including a baby Alvi. Holding hands, the silver-haired brother leads the golden-haired Alvi through the grand and sunlit mansion hallway. Nervous for the encounter, the golden-haired Alvi looks up at her brother as they approach the Duke's office. The silver-haired brother warns that their father is strict and constantly wears a scowl on his face. Alvis' emerald eyes reflect her deep-seated fear as she listens to her brother's description of their intimidating father. Arriving at the door, the silver-haired brother keeps a firm grip on Alva's hand to offer her support. Light floods the office as the silver-haired youth and golden-haired Alvi finally enter to meet the Duke. Standing before her father, the small Alvi looks up with wide eyes at the imposing silver-haired man. From a high vantage point, the Duke is seen working at a large desk, while his butler stands nearby. Alvi stands still in her purple dress, her hands clasped together as she faces the silent silver-haired Duke. The Duke continues to write with a stern face, seemingly ignoring the presence of his nervous young daughter. Looking down with a blush, the golden-haired Alvi admits she is far too nervous to meet his eyes. The Duke informs Alvi she should tell the servants if she needs anything, sounding formal and detached. A crinkle sounds as Alvi nervously clutches her dress, mentioning the delicious sweets and beautiful dresses provided. Finding a moment of courage, the golden-haired Alvi offers a radiant and incredibly heartwarming smile. A sharp gasp sounds as the silver-haired Duke freezes, seemingly shocked by Alva's sudden and pure joy. The Duke looks down at his papers with a stoic expression, his green eyes hidden behind his bangs. From across the large room, the silver-haired brother and golden-haired Alvi watch the Duke's silent reaction. With a cold and steady gaze, the silver-haired Duke commands his son to take Alvi and leave. The silver-haired brother looks concerned as they prepare to exit, noting the Duke's continuing distance and silence. Performing a polite bow, the golden-haired Alvi follows her brother out, her expression becoming sad and dejected. Looking back with watery emerald eyes, Alvi worries that her father has actually come to dislike her. A soft hum sounds as the golden-haired Alvi leaves the room, her heart heavy with a sense of rejection. A rhythmic clack sounds as the pair walks away, leaving the silent Duke alone in his office. The gray-haired butler watches the Duke with a concerned expression as the man returns to his documents. The butler points out that the Duke's documents are in complete disarray, revealing his hidden, flustered state. A rustle sounds as the silver-haired Duke groans, his cool facade crumbling as his papers scatter everywhere. Standing by the window, the Duke hides his face, clearly overwhelmed by his emotions after meeting Alvi. The golden-haired Alvi stands alone, looking surprised as she reflects on the brief and confusing family encounter. A vision of the silver-haired Catherine smiling radiantly highlights the maternal warmth Alvi is still desperately seeking. The bespectacled butler notes that Prince Merard was so anxious he even forgot to smile at Al. Standing by the window, the silver-haired prince reflects on his initial meeting with his long-lost sister. A warm vision of Al's mother cradling her as a baby surfaces, filled with maternal love. Merard remains deep in thought, his green eyes shimmering with the weight of his family's complex history. Leading her through the palace grounds, Merard introduces Al to a spectacular garden blooming with countless roses. Al's green eyes widen in wonder at the floral paradise, her heart soaring as she explores. Feeling a sudden sense of belonging, Al leans into Merard, finding comfort in her brother's steady presence. In a humorous moment, Al looks utterly bewildered, her mind spinning with questions about her new surroundings. Mirard gazes down at her with a look of pure, brotherly devotion, his heart melting at her innocence. Hand in hand, the pair walks toward a special corner of the garden, the sun casting a golden glow. They arrive at a beautiful wooden swing, its ropes adorned with delicate vines and vibrant flowers. Al sits tentatively on the swing, questioning if she is too old for such simple childhood play. Reassuring her with a gentle touch, Mirard explains that their mother once loved this very same swing. Mirard reveals that her mother always dreamed of sharing this joyful experience with Al after her birth. A soft tap sounds as Mirard prepares to give the swing a push, his heart full of love. Pushing her gently, Mirard watches as Al soars through the air, her hair fluttering in the breeze. Closing her eyes, Al savors the weightless sensation, her face glowing with a peace she's never felt. Al swings gracefully, finally embracing the simple happiness of a child who is truly cared for. A sudden gasp of delight escapes her as she catches sight of a breathtaking view from above. The sunset paints the empire in hues of orange and gold, a windmill turning slowly in the distance. Al's eyes sparkle with the reflection of the setting sun, capturing the beauty of her new world. Mirard watches her with a satisfied smile, asking for her thoughts on the magnificent, sweeping landscape. Looking back at him, Al beams with a radiant smile, her joy reaching her eyes at last. A bright, melodic laugh rings out across the garden as Al continues to swing with unrestrained glee. The prince catches the swing, grounding her gently as their moment of play comes to a close. Reaching out, Mirard gives Al a tender head pat, his gesture filled with warmth and protective care. In a charming display of affection, the silver-haired man showers Al with praise, delighting her heart. Mirard's gaze remains soft and encouraging as he prepares to speak of more serious family matters. He explains that her father also carried a deep love for her, despite his silence and distance. Tears of relief well up in Al's eyes as she realizes she was never truly unwanted or hated. Mirard asks for her full attention, his expression turning serious as he recounts their father's struggles. A somber shift occurs as the story delves into the tragic events that once tore their family apart. A flower-laden coffin symbolizes the profound loss and grief that overshadowed the Stuart house for years. In a past vision, a young Mirard kneels before the emperor, accepting a heavy and dangerous duty. After a heated argument with His Majesty, Mirard leaves the throne room with a grim determination. Leading a vast army, the prince rides out on a black steed to face a rising rebellion. Mirard fights with desperate ferocity on the battlefield, risking everything to bring peace back to his empire. Covered in blood and grime, the silver-haired warrior's eyes burn with the promise of a safe return. A darkened portrait reveals the family's hidden faces, united only by the promise to find the lost Al. Victorious but weary, Mirard returns to the palace gates, his mission finally completed after years of struggle. The emperor greets the returning hero with open arms, celebrating the safety of the Gainsborough Empire. Crowds cheer wildly for the prince, hailing him as the savior who protected their very way of life. In a quiet moment of reflection, Mirard sits alone, the weight of his memories still pressing down. His expression hardens with a lingering sorrow as he contemplates the time lost between him and Al. Grasping her hands, Mirard begs Al to understand their father's pain and give him another chance. Al's heart aches with empathy as she listens to the incredible hardships her family endured for her. Gently wiping away her tears, Mirard promises to help her bridge the distance between her and her father. Sobbing with a mix of relief and sorrow, Al finally lets her guard down completely in his presence. A servant approaches with a polite bow, informing the young master that preparations for their next journey are ready. Smiling softly, Mirard reassures Al that their new life together is only just beginning. Al looks on with curiosity, her shimmering green eyes wide as she observes her new surroundings. Mirard instructs Al to wait patiently on the floral swing, promising a quick return as he departs. A tender memory of baby Al being held surfaces, emphasizing Mirard's deep protective love for his sister. In the cold dungeon, Mirard demands the interrogation continue, his regal uniform contrasting with the dark stone. The bruised prisoner pleads with the prince, claiming she has already divulged everything she knows. Looming over the woman, Mirard remains skeptical, his expression hard as he prepares to extract the full truth. Mirard's green eyes narrow with icy intent as he asks if there are secrets she is still hiding. Met with the prince's terrifying gaze, the woman trembles in silence, her face pale with mounting dread. A heavy silence fills the chamber as Mirard lowers his sword, the tension reaching a breaking point. A sickening, wet splat sounds as the prince's blade pierces the woman's shoulder, his patience finally exhausted. A pained gah erupts as blood sprays across the floor, the woman suffering for her past cruelty. Mirard declares his absolute lack of mercy for anyone who dared to inflict harm upon his precious Alvi. Grinding his blade, the prince accuses her of the terrible abuse Al suffered while at the orphanage. Gasping in agony, the woman finally breaks and promises to speak, her resistance crushed by Mirard's fury. Through ragged breaths, the prisoner begins to reveal the identity of the one who originally took Al in. Back in the sunlit garden, Al sits on the swing, her attention captured by approaching footsteps. A red-haired boy and a silver-haired girl appear, the boy demanding to know Al's identity. Startled by this sudden confrontation, Al turns her head, her expression one of innocent confusion. The red-haired boy, Hokutan, shouts at Al for daring to use Catherine's private flower swing. Al quickly hops down, offering a sincere apology for intruding on a place she didn't know was taken. Catherine watches with a worried expression while Hokutan continues to glare at the newcomer with hostility. Hokutan points an accusatory finger, his resentment boiling over as he confronts the young lady. Al is stunned into silence when Hokutan yells that she has stolen everything that once belonged to Catherine. Catherine tries to restrain Hokutan, explaining that Al is their uncle's true daughter and meant no harm. Hokutan reminds Catherine that she was the most doted child until Al's sudden and disruptive return. Overwhelmed by the harsh reality of her changing status, Catherine begins to weep, covering her face in sorrow. Seeing Catherine's tears, Hokutan panics and desperately tries to comfort her, regretting his blunt words. Feeling responsible for the girl's distress, Al watches the crying Catherine with a heavy, guilt-ridden heart. Turning his anger back toward Al, Hokutan points and screams that Catherine's pain is entirely her fault. A forceful thump sounds as Hokutan pushes Al, his childish jealousy turning into a dangerous physical attack. A sharp kya escapes Al's lips as she tumbles backward, the ground disappearing from beneath her feet. Before she can hit the ground, Mirard catches Al, his hands firm and his face etched with anger. With a cold and threatening tone, the prince demands an explanation for the children's unacceptable behavior. Mirard asks if Alvi is all right, and Al looks up at him with immense relief, calling him brother. Gently wrapping his cloak around her, Mirard ensures Al stays warm, his protective instincts fully engaged. Catherine stands in silence, her eyes downcast as the tension in the garden becomes suffocatingly thick. Mirard's gaze turns sharp and demanding as he asks Hokutan for the reason behind his violent actions. Hokutan and Catherine tremble with fear, sweating under the intense pressure of Mirard's terrifying presence. Defiantly pointing, Hokutan attempts to justify himself by claiming Al stole Catherine's beloved swing. In a moment of childish frustration, Hokutan's tiny form reflects his inner turmoil and stubbornness. Mirard looms over the boy, coldly stating that he witnessed the push with his own eyes. Stepping forward, Catherine begs Mirard to stop, explaining that Hokutan was only acting out of loyalty. Looking up at the prince, Catherine offers to apologize in Hokutan's place to settle the dispute. Catherine's expression is one of quiet resignation, accepting the painful shift in her family's dynamic. Confused by Catherine's submissive stance, Hokutan questions why she is apologizing to the intruder. A sharp bark sounds as Mirard shouts Hokutan's name, sending a jolt of pure terror through him. Cowering behind Catherine, Hokutan hides from his brother's wrath while Mirard remains stern and unyielding. Mirard sighs with regret, realizing that his joy over Al's return caused him to neglect Catherine. The contrasting figures of the two girls highlight the complex emotional divide currently tearing the household apart. A vision of the past shows a gentle woman standing behind a young Al, evoking deep longing. Al smiles brightly as off-screen hands finish tying her blonde hair with a delicate pink ribbon. Rita mentions Houghton and Catherine while finishing Al's hair, making the girl look slightly uneasy and uncertain. A pained "Gah" echoes in her memory as Al recalls the garden conflict and Catherine's heartbreaking tears. A heavy, dejected atmosphere settles over Al as she recalls being pushed, while Rita suggests she gets rest. Al watches quietly as the dark-haired maid prepares her large, ornate bed for the long night ahead. Alone in the room, Al's eyes are veiled in shadow as she contemplates her family's deep emotional discord. In a memory, Mirard stands firm, holding Al's hand while confronting the children for their hostile behavior. Looking stern, Mirard reminds the children that Alvi is an equal member of the family who deserves respect. Holding his hand, Al gazes up at her brother with a mix of awe and deep gratitude. Houghton makes a rude face, defiantly claiming he only acknowledges Catherine as his true sister and family. The red-haired boy drags Catherine away, leaving Al and Mirard standing together in the silent garden. Mirard gently reassures Al that Houghton's rudeness is just due to the awkwardness of their very first meeting. Al's green eyes sparkle with newfound hope and determination as she listens to her brother's comforting words. A soft wah escapes the blushing chibi Al as she reflects on being called a member of the family. Kneeling to her level, Mirard offers a warm, encouraging smile to ease his sister's lingering worries. Overwhelmed by his kindness, Al clutches her hands to her heart amidst a beautiful, sparkling field of flowers. Mirard explains that Catherine was brought in by their grandmother and is not his biological sister by blood. A pained "Gah" sounds as the father slumps over, drowning his grief in alcohol after Al's tragic loss. Grandmother tries to reach the broken man, while a young Mirard watches the tragic scene unfold from afar. To help heal the family's pain, grandmother brought in young Catherine to provide comfort to the mourning household. The contrasting figures of Al and Catherine highlight the complex, shifting roles they now play in the estate. In the past, the father reacts with terrifying rage when grandmother suggests Catherine as a replacement for Al. Young Catherine is shown curtsying gracefully during her early days being raised within the high-ranking Stewart family. Back in the present, Al looks conflicted, her hands clasped tightly as she thinks of her sister's pain. Mirard pulls Al into a tender embrace, firmly stating that Catherine could never truly replace her in his heart. Anxiously, Al asks Rita if Catherine will still be considered family now that the true daughter has returned. Al gazes out thoughtfully, her profile reflecting a growing desire to fix her fractured relationship with Catherine. Under the soft glow of the moon, the grand Stewart estate stands silent, majestic, and full of secrets. Tucked into bed, Al asks Rita about Catherine's interests, hoping to find a common bond between them. A flashback reveals Catherine in town, looking radiant and elegant in a stylish hat and shimmering blue dress. In another memory, Catherine is shown carefully rolling out dough in the kitchen with focused, quiet intent. With a joyful smile, Catherine presents a tray of cookies she worked incredibly hard to bake herself. Al lies in bed with a bright smile, her head filled with a wonderful idea for a gift. Rita shares a laugh with the little girl, certain that Catherine will love such a thoughtful, kind gesture. Al settles in for the night, determined to plan the perfect greeting gift for the following morning. Rita promises to help Al brainstorm ideas as the girl's excitement begins to give way to peaceful sleep. Al lies awake for a moment, focused on the special gift she needs to prepare for her sister. With wide, hopeful eyes, Al wonders if her effort will finally bridge the emotional gap between them. A heartwarming vision shows Al and Catherine holding hands, finally united as true sisters in a bright future. The scene shifts to a grand library where the Stewart family has gathered for an important official meeting. A brown-haired lady with a fan observes that the serious meeting must be regarding matters of great importance. Merard explains that their father is currently away on business in a distant region and cannot attend today. Looking regal and authoritative, the silver-haired Merard reviews a document at the head of the long table. The family members wait expectantly in the sunlit library for the official house proceedings to finally begin. Creeping through the darkened hallway, Al searches for the kitchen to start her secret baking project. Seeing light through a doorway, Al pauses, her curiosity piqued by the sound of muffled voices nearby. Peeking inside, Al discovers the rest of the family already seated for the 23rd Stewart House meeting. The brown-haired woman sits beside her husband, her face solemn as the formal family discussion commences. Merard sits tall at the table, his expression unreadable as he assumes his heavy leadership duties. The Stewart family members raise their glasses in a formal toast around the massive, sun-drenched dining table. Alvi peeks through a cracked door, her eyes wide with curiosity as she overhears a secret family meeting. Inside the library, the family gathers as Merard takes charge, his expression serious while addressing the group's concerns. Hokutan questions the unusual timing of the family meeting, his young face reflecting genuine confusion and budding skepticism. Merard nods firmly, stressing that attendance is mandatory for all Stewart family members during such historic house proceedings. With a cold, steady gaze, Merard explains that he has already handled the situation by informing the absent members. Turning his attention to the butler, Merard orders Richard to distribute the official investigation reports concerning Alvy's identity. A sharp gasp escapes Alvi as she presses against the door, listening intently to the mention of an investigation. Catherine and Hokutan examine the report, Catherine whispering her concerns while Hokutan looks on with a suspicious frown. Hokutan scoffs, concluding that Alvi is surely a fake and is finally being prepared for expulsion from the house. Retreating into the shadows, Alvi is crushed by the realization that her family still views her with such hostility. Tears brim in Alvi's eyes as she faces the heart-wrenching possibility that she will never truly belong there. Her footsteps echo "Pata, Pata" as Alvi flees down the dark, lonely hallway to escape the painful conversation. Looking deeply offended, Merard gestures broadly while defending his absolute certainty in recognizing his own sister's true blood. Challenging the room's doubt, Merard asks if they truly believe his judgment is so easily fooled by an imposter. The air turns frigid as Merard demands to know if anyone dares to claim Alvi is a mere fake. The brown-haired woman attempts to soothe the tension, acknowledging the suspicious circumstances while urging everyone to remain calm. Merard warns the room that no further nonsense will be tolerated, ordering them to listen to Richard's official explanation. Richard adjusts his glasses with a sharp, intimidating glint, while the other family members whisper about his overbearing presence. Standing before a chart, Richard prepares to detail everything known about Alvi, including the proof of her true lineage. A heartwarming memory shows a younger Alvi in a frilly pink dress, radiating pure joy and innocence. In another vision, Alvi enjoys a piece of cake with a blissful smile, relishing the simple, sweet moment. Surrounded by a sparkling aura, Alvi happily drinks a glass of milk, her face lit with genuine contentment. Seated on her favorite swing, Alvi closes her eyes and smiles, cherishing a peaceful afternoon in the garden. Back in the library, the family members appear overwhelmed by the sheer volume of evidence being presented to them. Richard admits the investigation is incomplete, requesting that every family member contribute their strength to uncover the full truth. Disdainful whispers fill the room as some members question why they must involve themselves in Alvy's debut preparations. Merard's intense, commanding presence silences the room as he demands their absolute and silent cooperation in the matter. Alone in her bedroom, Alvy sits dejectedly on the edge of the bed, feeling like an unwanted intruder. A soft swoon sounds as Alvy curls into herself, bracing for the inevitable rejection she feels is coming. Tears stream down her face as Alvy packs her few belongings, lamenting that she has lost her home before. A heavy "Poda! Ta!" sounds as a tear lands on the pink fabric, marking her deep sense of despair. Exhausted by grief, Alvy collapses onto her bed, clutching her small bundle while sobbing herself into a restless sleep. A bright vision of the smiling Merard and the kind maids appears, representing the fleeting happiness she found. Merard appears in a stoic, portrait-like memory, his noble silhouette a painful reminder of the family Alvy fears losing. Sunlight bathes the grand Stuart mansion, contrasting with the dark, emotional turmoil brewing within the young girl's heart. The following morning, a maid opens the curtains, allowing a flood of bright light to fill Alvis's room. Alvy remains curled up on the bed, fast asleep and still clutching the dress she intended to take. Two maids stand over the sleeping girl, their faces etched with concern as they prepare to wake her. Observing the bundle on the bed, the maids whisper about Alvis's deep sleep while looking slightly bewildered by her. Alvy sits up with a start, rubbing her eyes as she realizes she has been discovered by the household staff. Leaning in close, the dark-haired maid expresses relief that the young lady has finally stirred from her long slumber. A sharp "gah" escapes Alvy as she realizes her secret plan to flee the mansion was ruined by oversleeping. The maids recoil in shock, their eyes wide as Alvy reacts with an unexpectedly dramatic and panicked morning greeting. Forcing a bright and nervous smile, Alvy frantically waves her hands to distract from her suspicious packed bundle. Looking dejected, Alvy realizes her chance to leave unnoticed is gone, leaving her to face the day's uncertainty. In a panicked chibi state, Alvy berates herself for sleeping through her planned midnight escape from the Stuart mansion. Curled on her side, Alvy hugs her bundle with a sorrowful expression, feeling like her fate is already sealed. A heavy atmosphere of gloom settles over Alvy as she contemplates the rejection and expulsion she believes is imminent. The maids whisper together, deciding that Alvy's strange, erratic behavior requires the immediate attention of the butler, Richard. Horror drains the color from Alvy's face as she hears Richard's name, her heart hammering with absolute, wide-eyed dread. Standing tall and composed, Richard oversees the maids as they prepare for the day's upcoming household activities. Overwhelmed by her difficult situation, Alvy lets out soft, sorrowful tears while reflecting on her uncertain future. A tiny, purple-haired figure cheerfully calls out to Alvy, her bright energy contrasting with the girl's recent gloom. Shimmering with elegance, a lavish collection of gifts, fresh flowers, and tea sets are laid out for the young lady. Alvy's eyes widen and her jaw drops in pure shock as she beholds the unexpected kindness gathered before her. The servants present a beautiful basket of mixed flowers to Alvy, explaining they picked a variety to ensure her happiness. Maids eagerly present hand-embroidered lace and fresh lemon tea, their warm smiles reflecting their genuine desire to please Alvy. Sitting on her bed, Alvy watches in amazement as the entire household staff gathers to present her with thoughtful offerings. Clutching a beautifully wrapped gift, Alvy asks with a trembling voice if all these wonderful things are truly for her. Moved to tears by the staff's kindness, Chibi Alvy's eyes sparkle with joy as she experiences true belonging for once. Merard stands with noble grace, his efforts to secure the Emperor's permission for Alvis's debut, proving his deep sibling devotion. Radiant and graceful, Alvi tries on a stunning pink gown, her transformation into a true noble daughter finally becoming reality. Standing at the top of a grand staircase, Alvi prepares to greet the world, shimmering under the estate's magnificent lights. The maids enthusiastically promise to dress Alvi in the finest attire, determined to make her the center of attention. A peaceful smile graces Alvi's face as she finally begins to feel the warmth and love of her new home. Memories of a lonely past surface as Alvi recalls being a rugged child, timidly asking if she could call someone mama. Surrounded by Mirard and the cheerful servants, Alvi is hailed as the true young lady of the Grand Stewart estate. Blissfully enjoying tea and snacks, Alvi is doted on by the happy maids, finally living the life she once only dreamed of. In a quiet parlor, the brown-haired woman meticulously arranges flowers while Mirard sits pensively in the sunlit background. Mirard exhales a plume of smoke, his eyes closed as he takes a moment of silent reflection amidst his heavy duties. The brown-haired woman irritably observes that the servants have neglected her room while they were busy fawning over Alvi. Deciding to take matters into her own hands, the woman tells Catherine she will gather fresh garden flowers herself. Catherine offers a sweet, grateful smile, expressing her deep appreciation to the family for taking her in and caring for her. Placing a hand on Catherine's shoulder, the woman dismisses her concerns, gently reminding the silver-haired girl that she is still just a child. Looking slightly troubled, Catherine wonders aloud what her role should be now that the true daughter of the house has returned. The brown-haired woman delivers a calculated instruction, telling Catherine that her new mission is to befriend Alvi and earn her trust. A bead of sweat rolls down Catherine's face as she contemplates the weight of her mother's request to bond with Alvi. The woman's grip tightens on Catherine's shoulder as she internally plots to use the girl to manipulate Alvi for her own gain. A sinister, predatory smile stretches across the woman's face as she realizes that controlling Alvi is the key to absolute power. Oblivious to the manipulation, Catherine clasps her hands together, resolving to do her best to help just as her mother requested. Exhausted from the day's emotional whirlwind, Alvi collapses onto her large plush bed, her energy completely spent. The maids playfully tease Alvi, warning her that her official debut celebration will be even more tiring than today's festivities. Alvi sits up with a dizzy expression, but the servants quickly reassure her they will be right by her side. Clapping her hands with contagious excitement, the maid vows to make Alvi the brightest and most beautiful star of the debut. A handsome young man with dark hair and striking red eyes appears, his royal presence exuding a calm, mysterious authority. In a romantic vision, Alvi dances gracefully with the dark-haired prince amidst a sea of glowing light and blooming roses. Chibi Alvi flails her arms in a panicked, blushing state as the maids continue to tease her about her future prince. With a knowing wink, the maid assures the blushing girl that her fateful meeting with the prince is fast approaching. The Grand Stewart mansion towers majestically under the clear sky, its noble spires reaching toward a future full of possibilities. Mirard's white-clad legs stride purposefully toward a grand desk where the mysterious black-haired man sits waiting in the shadows. Standing before the prince, Mirard maintains a respectful but firm posture as he prepares to discuss a matter of great urgency. The dark-haired noble is revealed as Theodore Gainsborough, the crown prince, looking up from his book with a steady gaze. Looking deeply serious, Mirard asks Theodore for his royal assistance in locating a person of critical importance to the family. A haunting vision depicts Theodore carrying a fragile, sleeping Alvi, hinting at a secret history between the prince and the girl. Theodore reflects on the puzzling fact that even the powerful Stewart family cannot track the person who initially delivered Alvi. Mirard explains that the mysterious benefactor vanished instantly after bringing Alvi to the ducal house, leaving no trace behind. Theodore closes his book with a thoughtful frown, his red eyes reflecting his curiosity regarding the missing person's identity. Leaning in with an intense expression, Mirard asks if Theodore truly intends to seek out a legendary messenger of the gods. A shrouded, divine figure is shown studying an ancient tome, radiating a celestial light beneath a golden, starry seal. Arriving at the Grand Temple, Mirard and Theodore are stopped by guards who explain the second prince is currently inside. Imperial guards block Mirard and Crown Prince Theodore, citing the Empress's absolute orders to deny them entry. Mirard begrudgingly agrees to wait outside, though the dark-haired Theodore looks visibly disappointed by the rejection. Theodore expresses concern regarding their mission, but Mirard remains focused on their goal to meet the divine messenger. A sharp sound echoes as the grand doors slowly creak open, revealing the path into the inner sanctum. From behind an ornate fan, a woman coldly declares that she will not allow any meeting with the messenger. Felina Gainsborough, the Empress, stands in regal splendor, her cold gaze as sharp as her decorative fan. Empress Felina dismisses them, stating the divine envoy is busy preparing the second prince for his future succession. Looking stern, Mirard reminds the Empress that under imperial law, Crown Prince Theodore remains the first in line. Felina mockingly asserts the Emperor's will and berates Mirard for his insolence in failing to offer a greeting. Mirard's expression tightens in a moment of silent, tense realization as he faces the Empress's overwhelming and cold authority. Yielding to protocol, Mirard kneels and offers his formal greetings to Her Majesty the Empress as she watches. Theodore watches with a heavy heart as Mirard humbles himself before the woman who openly challenges his birthright. Walking past them, Felina dismisses the title of Crown Prince as a mere formality with no guarantee of power. A sinister smirk crosses Felina's face as she warns Theodore that the throne is not yet his to claim. The scene shifts to the sun-drenched Imperial Palace gardens as Mirard and Theodore walk away in somber silence. Theodore apologizes for the wasted time, regretting that the Empress chose to interfere personally in their family's mission. Mirard contemplates the Empress's undeniable hostility and wonders if the Emperor truly intends to bypass his rightful heir. Looking at Theodore, Mirard realizes how suffocating the young prince's position within the palace must truly feel. Mirard offers silent support as Theodore resolves never to abandon the throne, regardless of the challenges he faces. The Crown Prince's red eyes reflect his firm determination to persevere even if his own father despises him. Mirard offers a warm, encouraging smile, suggesting they find another way to reach the divine messenger together. Brushing aside his gloom, Theodore offers a small, grateful smile and agrees with his companion's hopeful suggestion. Night falls as a horse-drawn carriage arrives at the grand main gate of the Stuart ducal house estate. Mirard steps out of the carriage, his return home marked by the respectful presence of Richard and the staff. Alvi rushes out to greet him, her face lighting up as she asks about his day at the palace. Lifting her skirts, Alvi looks around with confusion and asks where her brother has gone during the trip. Mirard stares down at the young girl with a stoic, unreadable expression that momentarily halts her excitement. Mirard questions why she is outside in the cold, while the maids nervously explain her desire to welcome him. Despite his harsh words about unnecessary behavior, Mirard's cold demeanor begins to soften toward the young Alvi. A close-up highlights the rich details of Mirard's noble attire as his hand reaches for his heavy cloak. Mirard kneels before Alvi, gently wrapping his own large, fur-lined cloak around her small and fragile frame. Alvi's eyes widen in shock as she is enveloped in the sudden, unexpected warmth of her father's protection. Leaving Alvi standing in his oversized cloak, Mirard walks away without another word, hiding his true, soft feelings. Clutching the heavy fabric, Alvi looks after him and whispers the word "father" with awe and confusion. Richard approaches the stunned young lady to deliver an important message sent by the young master. Alone in a grand room, Alvi reflects on her father's return while holding the heavy cloak he gave her. A sense of melancholy washes over Alvi as she wonders about her place in this complicated noble family. Wrapping herself in the warmth of the cloak, Alvi finds comfort in Morard's silent and rare gesture of kindness. Alvi smiles softly to herself, realizing that deep down, her father is actually a very considerate person. She contrasts his quiet affection with the truly heartless nature of the figures she has seen in the palace. In a cheerful chibi state, Alfie giggles happily while clinging to the cloak that represents her newfound security. Looking down at a steaming bowl of soup, Alfie prepares to enjoy a quiet, warm meal alone. Bathed in a soft glow, Alfie eats peacefully, her heart full of the small joy of a simple dinner. A chilling vision reveals the brown-haired woman gripping the chin of a terrified, silver-haired girl in the dark. A pink teddy bear flies through the air as Catherine's room becomes a scene of frustrated, childish rage. Catherine sits on her bed in a tantrum, lamenting that she was once the only lady of the house. Looking utterly miserable, Catherine questions why she must be expected to play nice with the newcomer, Alvi. A door slams shut with a loud sound as Catherine rejects everything around her in a jealous fit. Richard and the maids look concerned as Morard approaches the room, demanding to know the cause of the commotion. A boy with brown hair and light pink eyes stands against a floral background, looking bewildered by the chaos. Sitting on the bed, Hokuton notes that his uncle's focus is entirely consumed by Alvi's return. Catherine looks downcast as Hokuton dismisses the upcoming debutante presentation as a mere triviality. Morard sits sternly at his desk, contemplating his own private plan to handle the family's investigations. With a cold and piercing gaze, Morard orders everyone in the room to cooperate without any resistance. Seated at the head of the long table, Morard promises a generous reward for those who assist him. Richard steps forward, carefully holding an ornate wooden box that begins to open with a sudden, soft click. Dallas and the other family members gasp in utter disbelief as the contents of the box are revealed. A dazzling collection of large pink diamonds sparkles brilliantly, radiating an expensive and rare light. Chuckling nervously, Dallas suggests that using such priceless gems for Alvi's accessory is a complete waste. Morard glares at Dallas, sharply asserting his right to use his own assets for his daughter's benefit. Trembling slightly, Dallas claims he is only worried that Alvi might attract negative attention from other noble ladies. Morard narrows his eyes, questioning whether Dallas is truly worried for Alvi or hiding his own selfish motives. The silver-haired Duke remains silent, his stern expression revealing his deep distrust of those sitting across from him. In her room, Catherine weeps as she realizes the family must stay on Alvis's good side to avoid exile. Looking utterly terrified and tearful, the young Catherine wonders if she will be sent back to her old life. Hokuton's expression shifts to one of intense determination and hidden anger as he watches the girl's distress. Sitting alone on a garden bench at night, Alvi wonders what kind of gift would make Catherine truly happy. Hokuton suddenly appears with a lantern, ordering Alvi to follow him immediately for a private conversation. Back at the mansion, a furious Morard shouts at the staff for failing to keep Alvi under constant supervision. The maids drop to their knees, begging for punishment after realizing the young lady has gone missing. Dallas tries to pacify his brother, suggesting that the children are likely just playing together somewhere on the grounds. Calmly sipping his tea, Dallas maintains a smug and unbothered attitude despite the growing emergency. A sudden, sharp crash echoes through the room as the delicate porcelain teacup is smashed against the floor. Losing his patience, Morard seizes Dallas by the collar and demands to know if he thinks he is untouchable. A tense silence falls as Morard looms over Dallas, while the brown-haired woman watches in horrified shock. Catherine trembles nearby, realizing she has never seen her uncle reach such a terrifying level of pure rage. Clutching her arm, Catherine desperately wonders where Hokuton could have possibly taken Alvi in the middle of the night. A red-haired knight reports that Alvi is nowhere near the estate, prompting an immediate mobilization of the Stuart Guards. Morard towers over the cowering Dallas, warning him to be grateful for the family blood that protects him. With his eyes burning with fury, Morard declares that he is personally joining the search for his daughter. Under the full moon, a long column of armored knights marches out from the grand gates of the estate. Morard prepares for the search, suspecting that child abductors might have targeted the girl once again. Stepping into the stirrup with a heavy thud, Morard vows to find the children before the night is over. Deep in the woods, the wind howls around the stone walls of a tall, ominous, abandoned tower. The scene shifts to the tower's rotting wooden door as a low, eerie, creaking sound fills the air. Alvi follows Hokuton up the dark stairs, her voice trembling as she expresses her growing fear of the place. Hokuton continues upward with the lantern, ignoring her pleas and telling her to simply follow his lead. Pausing in the shadows, Alvi feels a cold chill as the atmosphere of the tower becomes increasingly oppressive. A dark, sinister aura begins to swirl around Hokuton, making Alvi realize that something is very wrong with him. A dirty and torn pink teddy bear lies forgotten on the stone floor, adding to the tower's haunting vibe. Alvi stops in her tracks, asking Hokuton to explain the history of this scary and ancient stone building. With a shadowed face, Hokuton reveals the tower was once a secret prison used to lock up unruly children. In a dark vision, Hokuton recounts the legend of a daughter belonging to the family's 13th head. Hokuton points toward Alvi, noting that the girl in the legend was exactly the same age as her. The vision depicts a silhouetted girl with a cruel smile, described as having a truly wicked and violent personality. The shadow girl is shown holding scissors, having destroyed every single toy and person within her reach. Haunted by her own malice, the girl spent her days and nights creating a constant sound of destruction. To exact revenge on her father, the girl reportedly cursed her entire clan before jumping from the tower. The legend concludes with the girl becoming an evil spirit, forever bound to haunt the tower's stone walls. Leaning in close to the terrified Alvi, Hokuton whispers a chilling question, asking if she can hear the spirit. From the top of the tall tower, Hokuton taunts the frightened Alvi by calling her a scaredy cat. Hokuton smugly tells Alvi she must learn her place to return home, believing fear will ensure her obedience. Hokuton aggressively vows to protect Catherine from bullying, while a distressed Alvi maintains she only wanted to be friends. Rejecting Alvis's plea for friendship, Hokuto shouts that he is the only person Catherine truly needs. As eerie shadows and bats surround him, Hokuton begins to fear the legends of the tower are actually true. Sensing a real threat, Alvi heroically tells Hokuton to hide behind her as a massive shadow looms nearby. Terrified by the sudden appearance of a beast, Hokuton lets out a loud scream as Alvi stands her ground. A quick slip sounds as Hokuton's boot loses its footing on the uneven, rotting stone of the tower stairs. Hokuton recoils in pure terror, the darkness of the tower seemingly closing in on his panicked and retreating form. Alvi screams out Hokuton's name as he falls and lies unconscious on the floor, surrounded by a dark aura. The abandoned stone tower stands as a silent sentinel in the dark forest, while a faint light glows below. Kneeling beside the bloodied boy, Alvi desperately begs for Hokuton to wake up as a gasp escapes her lips. Seeing the severity of his injuries, Alvi steels her resolve and prepares to use her powers to treat him. Alvis' hands glow with divine light, unaware that a massive, red-eyed wolf silhouette is watching her from the darkness. A large tongue licks Alvis' face as the beast, a majestic blue-gray wolf with intelligent gold eyes, stands before Alvi, radiating a surprisingly calm and protective presence. Recognizing the creature, Alva's face lights up with joy as she thanks goodness that the wolf is still alive. Alvi continues her healing work, telling the wolf she will fix Hokuton's wounds and that everything will be okay. Gold light swirls around Alva's hand as she heals Hokuton's head, noting that the boy is no longer in danger. Alvi giggles as the wolf licks her again, explaining that he is only tired from using his own hidden strength. Alvi pets the large creature, calling him Belle and expressing her amazement at how much he has grown lately. Finding comfort in their reunion, Alvi closes her eyes and gives the massive, fluffy wolf a warm and loving hug. A sudden creak startles Alvi, and she shouts out a question to the mysterious figure standing in the doorway. Alva's head begins to spin as a blurry, dark-haired boy appears before her in the oppressive atmosphere of the tower. The Crown Prince Theodore walks past the fallen girl, his presence marked by the clack of his tall black boots. Theodore gazes down at the unconscious girl, wondering silently if she is the missing young lady of the Stewart house. Overwhelmed by exhaustion and the night's events, Alvi lets out a soft groan as she drifts toward total unconsciousness. Theodore gently carries the sleeping Alvi in his arms, promising to take her home now that the ordeal is over. Back at the mansion, Morard sits faithfully by Alvis's bedside while Richard stands respectfully in the doorway. Richard expresses concern for the Duke, urging Morard to rest after he stayed awake all night watching over Alvi. Morard remains silent, his stern gaze fixed on his sleeping daughter, as he grapples with his internal worry and guilt. A sudden movement from the bed catches Morard's attention as Alvi begins to stir from her deep and troubled sleep. Alvi bolts upright in a panic, her first priority being to ask her father if Hokuton is safe. Confused by the mention of a savior, Alvi realizes she has only heard of the Crown Prince through household rumors. Morard explains that Theodore personally joined the search party after being informed that the young lady had gone missing. Morard recounts how the prince found Alvi and Hokuton unconscious in the forest, though he seems hesitant about the details. A memory shows the dark-haired Theodore holding Alvi close, his expression unreadable as he returned her to her family. Morard looks visibly annoyed, thinking to himself that the way the prince carried his daughter seemed far too familiar. Alvi stares in shock, finally connecting the dots and realizing the boy from the tower was truly the Crown Prince. Exhaling a breath of relief, Morard dismisses his frustrations and tells Alvi he is simply glad she is safe. Alvi looks down with a sad expression, feeling a wave of guilt for causing her father so much unnecessary worry. Moving with unexpected tenderness, Morard reaches out and pulls his daughter into a firm, protective, and much-needed embrace. Morard closes his eyes as he holds Alvi tight, his usual coldness melting away into the warmth of paternal love. Alvi smiles happily as she snuggles into her father's arms, finally feeling the security she has craved since her return. The morning light filters through the grand room, illuminating the ornate chandelier as the family finds a moment of peace. Alvi worries to herself that if she tells the truth about the tower, Hokuton will face severe punishment. Looking up at her father, Alvi softly remarks on how tired he looks, showing her own growing concern for him. Morard looks away while scratching the back of his neck, seemingly flustered by his daughter's sudden and direct observation. Alvi asks if all of this trouble happened because of her, her voice filled with a mix of uncertainty and sadness. Alvi watches her father closely, waiting for an answer, while Morard remains lost in his own complicated and private thoughts. Alvi smiles with pure joy, her eyes crinkling into happy crescents. Alva's small hands gently grasp her father's sleeve, a subtle gesture of her growing trust. A sudden realization strikes Alvi, leaving her wide-eyed and momentarily breathless. Morard questions Alva's choice of words, asking if she meant to say father instead of papa. Exhaling a soft sigh, Morard tells Alvi she can address him however she feels most comfortable. Alvi joyfully tackles Morard in a hug as the butler dabs tears of delight from his eyes. Alvi reaches out to touch her father's sleeve, her voice soft as she calls out to him. Looking up with concern, Alvi warns her father that overworking will eventually ruin his health. Mirard's features soften into a rare, gentle smile as he looks down at his caring daughter. A quiet nare sounds as Mirard tenderly pats Alva's head, acknowledging her sweet gesture. Mirard instructs Alvi to recover properly while she watches him leave with a bright, hopeful smile. Leaving the room, Mirard tells the knight to ensure Alva's meals remain light for her recovery. Alvi closes her eyes, basking in the warmth of the lingering affection from her father. Alva's expression darkens as she senses a heavy, ominous aura emanating from her father's retreating form. Alvi steels her resolve, realizing she must find a way to help her father overcome his troubles. Mirard broods over his wine, suspecting Alvi is lying and that Theodore is also hiding something significant. Clenching his fist, Mirard worries about Theodore's influence now that Alvi has finally returned to his side. A sharp light glints in Mirard's eye as he remains deeply suspicious of the knight's strange events. A dark vision depicts Alvi as a pawn on a giant chessboard, surrounded by looming skeletal hands. Sunlight streams through a grand window as the Duke's thoughts dwell on the blood found on Hokuton. Mirard sits in quiet contemplation on the couch while the red-haired knight awaits his orders. A hazy memory shows the young Hokuton lying in bed, still unconscious and wrapped in bandages. The red-haired knight notes that Hokuton is unlikely to speak even after he eventually wakes up. Mirard realizes Alvi is also being untruthful about their supposed casual walk into the dangerous forest. A look of shock crosses the knight's face as he processes the fact that Alvi is lying. Mirard decides to check on Hokuton personally, apologizing to the knight for the sudden interruption. Mirard asks the knight to be lenient with the boy, believing Alvi is merely trying to protect him. The red-haired knight lowers his head, solemnly promising to follow the Duke's merciful instructions. Hokuton stares into the mirror, shocked to find his injuries completely gone and his appearance unchanged. Hokuton recalls the terrifying moment an evil spirit appeared just before he fell down the tower stairs. Surrounded by sparkles, a chibi Hokuton marvels at how energetic he feels and how clear his skin looks. Hokuton breaks into a nervous sweat, unable to find any. Alva's horrified expression from the tower haunts Hokuton's memories as he tries to piece things together. Overwhelmed by confusion, Hokuton clutches his head and shouts in frustration at the strange situation. Spilled cookies litter the floor as Alva's feet are shown racing toward a startled Hokuton. A sudden shh sounds as Catherine lunges forward and pulls Hokuton into a desperate embrace. Catherine frantically describes the massive search party that was mobilized when the children went missing. Hokuton lets out a small gasp, his face turning bright red from the sudden physical contact. Catherine demands an explanation for the tower visit, noting the knights searched the entire capital in vain. Rubbing his head sheepishly, Hokuton admits he took Alvi to the tower, a small chibi version appearing above. Hokuton tries to laugh off the tension while Catherine looks at him with visible worry and disbelief. Hokuton explains he only intended to teach Alvi a lesson for her supposed bullying of Catherine. Catherine hangs her head in guilt, her voice trembling as she offers a sincere apology to Hokuton. Taking Catherine's hands in his, Hokuton gazes at her with an intense and determined expression. Hokuton declares the tower idea was entirely his own and vows to take full responsibility for it. The red-haired knight stands in the doorway, his stern gaze focused directly on the young boy. Catherine freezes in terror, realizing her uncle likely overheard their confession about the bullying and the tower. Looming over Hokuton, the knight demandingly asks what he did to Alvi during their disappearance. Panicked, Hokuton tries to shift the blame, claiming Alvi insisted on playing hide-and-seek despite his warnings. A sharp pa sounds as the knight raises his hand, silencing Hokuton's lies with a sudden movement. A hand halts a sudden movement as Alva's desperate plea to spare Hokuton from harsh punishment echoes. The red-haired knight looms over the boy, demandingly asking what he truly did to Alvi the previous night. Hokuton shouts in a panic, doubling down on his lie that Alvi insisted on playing hide-and-seek. Losing his patience, the knight seizes Hokuton, berating him for his lack of remorse after being given another chance. A vision of a young Mirard in his prime appears, highlighting the stark contrast between his achievements and Hokuton's jealousy. Hokuton stands trembling and alone as the knight's voice thunders, questioning if he feels any shame toward their house. A look of cold, piercing fury settles on the knight's face as he declares his deep disappointment in the boy. Pushed to his limit, Hokuton breaks down and confesses to taking Alvi to the ruined tower out of resentment. A sharp glare cuts through the darkness as Hokuton claims he was only trying to protect Catherine from Alvi's bullying. Tears stream down Hokuton's face as he cries out that he too was in danger at the tower. Overwhelmed by bitterness, the boy shouts that everyone only cares for Alvi while ignoring his own safety. The red-haired knight stands frozen in shock as Hokuton weeps, realizing his interrogation had a far more damaging impact. Hokuton laments his perceived uselessness, sobbing. Wailing in despair, the boy declares himself unworthy of carrying the Stuart name or being the knight commander's son. A sudden rush of movement follows as Hokuton bolts from the room, leaving the stunned knight behind in the hallway. Alvi watches the emotional scene from the sidelines, her voice soft and full of worry as she calls for Hokuton. A small, sad smile touches Hokuton's face as he tries to compose himself while fleeing. Alvi stares after the retreating boy, her brow furrowing as she notices the knight standing still in the background. The red-haired knight stares down at his trembling hand, his expression clouded with a sudden wave of deep regret. 5 days later, Alvi sneaks into the kitchen at night to pack a basket of fresh food for Belle. Clinging to the basket of bread and apples, Alvi wears a bright, determined smile as she prepares her secret mission. Slipping into the dark forest, Alvi notes that she finally managed to escape the mansion's suffocating security. A memory depicts the heightened surveillance Alvi faced, with staff and guards constantly monitoring her every movement and letter. Even during quiet tea times, the presence of watchful guards served as a constant reminder of the recent ordeal. Alvi recalls the relentless interrogations her maids faced, creating an atmosphere of intense suspicion throughout the entire household. Chibi Alva's thoughts drift toward the ruined tower, where she knows her loyal friend Belle is still waiting. Reaching their meeting spot, Alvi is joyfully tackled by the massive wolf as they reunite in the moonlit clearing. Giggles fill the air as Belle licks Alvi's face, the two of them playing happily among the dark, towering trees. Alvi laughs while struggling to sit up, noting that Belle has grown much too heavy for her to carry. Resting a hand on Belle's head, Alvi gazes at the wolf with affection, eager to share everything on her mind. Chibi wolf icons reflect Belle's reactions as Alvi asks if he was lonely, hungry, or bothered by anyone else. Soft light surrounds the pair as Alvi kneels beside her basket, enjoying a rare moment of peace and companionship. Embracing the giant creature, Alvi whispers a promise that they will stay together despite the dangers they face. Alvi watches with a fond smile as Belle greedily eats the treats she brought, calling him a lovable glutton. Concern washes over Alvi as she notices Belle licking his front paw, suspecting he might have sustained an injury. Golden light radiates from Alva's hands as she uses her magic to mend the small wound on Belle's paw. Alvi holds the wolf's paw tenderly, her expression soft as she finishes the healing process under the stars. A sudden snap of a branch startles Alvi, and she looks up to find a pair of tall boots approaching. A black-haired boy in a regal white uniform emerges from the shadows, his presence commanding and unexpected. The mysterious boy gazes down at her, calmly observing that she truly is a teleportation-type ability user, after all. Alva's eyes widen in sheer terror as she realizes her secret has been discovered by the dark-haired intruder. Walking closer, the boy explains that Alvi's sudden unconsciousness the previous night prevented them from having a formal introduction. Moving with practiced grace, Alva's hand and places a polite, courtly kiss upon her knuckles. The boy reveals his true identity, introducing himself as the Crown Prince, Theodore Gainsborough, with a steady gaze. Breathless with shock, Alvi repeats his name in her mind as the prince expresses his honor at meeting again. Theodore's red eyes remain fixed on Alvi, his expression unreadable as he stands before the startled young lady. Instinctively, Alvi performs a perfect, graceful curtsy, her face flushed with a mixture of confusion and nervousness. Theodore notes that he only did his duty, complimenting Alvi on how quickly she has mastered proper greeting etiquette. Flustered, Alvi tries to play off her skills as awkward, though her blush betrays her growing embarrassment. A small, knowing smile plays on Theodore's lips as he remarks that even her humble response seems quite practiced. Theodore wonders if Alvi is mocking him as she offers a bright, closed-eye smile. Alvi questions Theodore's presence at the tower, which he coolly dismisses as a mere coincidence. News of Alvi and Hochten's disappearance shocks Duke Morard, who stands up abruptly from his desk in alarm. Morard urgently departs for home, while Theodore watches him leave with a steady, unreadable gaze. Under a moonlit sky, Theodore leads a white horse toward the tower, hoping its nose will find them. Memories depict Hochten's aggressive protectiveness, while Chibi Alvi wishes only for a simple friendship with Catherine. Theodore enters the tower and follows the sound of Hochten's frantic cries, sensing the situation is dire. Peering through a doorway, Theodore witnesses Alvi desperately pleading for the unconscious Hochten to wake up. Theodore's eyes widen in sheer astonishment as he observes the scene unfolding from the shadows. Reassuring the injured boy, Alvi uses her golden magic to heal Hochten while the wolf watches. Theodore realizes with shock that Alvi is a secret ability user as he watches her magic flow. Exhausted from her power, Alvi leans against Belle for comfort while Theodore remains hidden in the background. A faint whimper sounds as Alvi collapses from exhaustion, prompting the alerted Theodore to rush to her side. Theodore notes that the loyal wolf is seeking help for its fainted friend. Theodore gently lifts the sleeping Alvi, deciding to take her home while leaving the wolf with Hochten. A chibi Belle stays behind, fulfilling his duty by affectionately licking the face of the unconscious Hochten. Returning to the present, Theodore finishes recounting the night's events to Alvi in the dark forest. Theodore admits he was surprised that the massive wolf and Alvi were actually old friends. Theodore recalls finding a suspicious moving sack in the capital months ago while on an inspection. Opening the sack, Theodore discovered a wounded and hostile wolf cub growling from within. Theodore decided to hide the weakened cub in a remote forest location where it could recover safely. Theodore remembers kneeling down to offer food to the wary, bandaged cub for the first time. Present-day Theodore explains that it took a full month for the wolf to finally open up to him. Alvi gazes at Belle with affection, feeling sympathy for the hardships the wolf endured. Alvi thanks the prince for saving Belle, but prepares to ask a difficult favor of him. Alvi looks at Theodore with a determined and pleading expression, ready to voice her request. Theodore anticipates her words, assuming she wants him to keep her magical abilities a secret. Alvi clarifies that her request. Looking up with shimmering green eyes, Alvi prepares to reveal her true concern for Hochten. Theodore is shocked that Alvi is trying to protect the very person who put her in danger. Alvi looks down with a sad smile, reflecting on her complicated feelings for her brother. Touching her chest, Alvi explains that she can understand the pain and jealousy behind Hochten's actions. Alvi pleads with Theodore to keep the tower incident a secret to spare Hochten from punishment. Theodore questions her mercy as a vision of a skeletal crown and his own past looms. Alvi admits she still feels awe and confusion regarding her status as a duke's daughter. Alvi fears that a scandal could lead to her being exiled from the grand family she cherishes. A painful flashback shows Alvi being pushed away as she recalls her time as an outcast. Memories of Mirard and his family smiling together fill Alvi with a desperate longing to belong. Alvi looks up with a soft, hopeful expression, her eyes filled with love for her new home. Theodore watches Alvi through a crystalline vision, seeing the depth of her desire to stay. Alvi recalls a joyful moment on a swing with Duke Mirard watching over her with kindness. The warmth of the maid's company during tea reinforces Alvi's determination to protect her new life. Alvi smiles gently, her profile highlighted by a soft light as she finds inner peace. Alvi clasps her hands together, a radiant and genuine smile of joy gracing her face. Theodore stares at her in stunned silence, his red eyes wide with surprise at her selflessness. Looking at Alvi, Theodore remarks that she is a truly strange person for showing such mercy. Shadowy figures loom over a young Theodore, hinting at his own isolated childhood and family struggles. Theodore sighs and promises to keep the secret, prompting a burst of joyful relief from Alvi. Theodore warns Alvi that she is far too trusting, questioning if she is truly Millard's sister. Theodore firmly reminds Alvi that she now owes him 3 favors in exchange for his silence. Alvi's green eyes widen in a moment of quiet realization as she gazes thoughtfully toward the prince. Accepting his terms with grace, Alvi's face lights up with a radiant and incredibly heartwarming smile.